Here we go.
Get ready, get set for the best movie and pop culture talk in the universe. It's The Good Brothers on Mercado Airwaves with your hosts, Alex Mercado and Mike Mercado.
Welcome back to another episode of The Good Brothers. I'm Alex, that's Mike. We are The Good Brothers, the bestest brothers, the most awesomest podcast in the Midwest. We are your middlemen from New York to LA. We hold it down here in the Midwest. Say hi to the folks, Mike.
Hi, folks. Mike, how you doing, good brother?
I'm good. We're back in studio, luckily, this week. Let's talk, man. We have a lot to talk about. We have predictions. Some of us were right, mostly me. One of us scored 200 points in fantasy football against the other. That being me. One of us is the head of the family now, and one of us
has turned into black and white Sting.
Exactly.
So with that, thank you guys so much for joining us on this episode of The Good Brothers. We are getting you ready for Halloween. We have a bunch of news, so we're giving you the treats early because we are the cool house on the block. Good brother, how are you excited? Are you excited for 2020 Halloween?
You know what? I'm always excited about Halloween.
Yeah.
Because, and I think Bob's Burger said it best a little ways, where it's the one holiday you're like, I don't got to hug people. I don't got to get gifts or cards or do special dinners or trees and presents. All I got to do is watch scary things, eat a bunch of candy, and just lounge around and maybe drink a few brewskis while I'm at it. Like, it really is the most fun holiday with the least amount of pressure.
The chillest holiday.
It definitely sucks that we are in a pandemic and And by, we were hoping in the summer it would be better by now. Yeah, it's the opposite where it happened to spike right now again. So am I excited? No more than I usually am, but I do love the holiday for the scary movies and the pop culture aspect. So I guess I'm as excited as I normally am.
Yeah, and it'll be okay. And the first treat that we'll get this holiday season, good brother, besides the podcast that we are delivering, The Mandalorian Season 2 is finally here on Disney+. We'll start off with that because it is the thing that is closest to us when it comes to a major release. We absolutely adored Season 1. Maybe there was an episode that we didn't like. But all in all, a great premiere for Disney+ with their original programming. A wonderful release for Star Wars after some very mixed opinions for a long time, for the last, let's just say, 5, 6, 7 years of Star Wars. And then the cultural phenomenon that is Baby Yoda. So, Season 2, what are your hype levels?
Super hyped. I currently did a rewatch and love Season 1. Like, when you go back, you're like, man, this really is some really good Star Wars going on. And I hate to give it to the old school people because I really enjoy all Star Wars. But, man, Mandalorian is some really prime Star Wars universe building. I love it. Pedro Pascal is awesome. Yeah. There's some stuff that you go back and watch, you're like, oh, I forgot about that. Baby Yoda is a god, and I will worship him to the day I die. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to wait up, obviously, Friday night to see it. This is the biggest release we're going to get this year, especially now that movies are not. Like, in a normal year, this would be a nice add-on to a Fast and This, or a Marvel movie, or a DC movie. But in a year like this is going to be the most talked about, anticipated, and strongest release movie, TV, doesn't matter, we're going to get in 2020.
Do you think it overpasses what all the work and all the stats that The Boys had for Season 2 on Amazon Prime?
Yes.
Okay.
This will be the one thing. And it's very fascinating because these, not even mentioned The Boys, the current list of most viewed things came out. The Boys, Lovecraft Country, and I'm sure Mandalorian will be are the only non-Netflix things coming out. And we talk about the streaming wars all the time. You can say what you want, how popular Disney Plus is and how this is. Never forget, everyone has Netflix.
Yeah.
And when you look at those top 10 and 7 of them are Netflix, they're still the top dog. And I think this proves it. But yes, I do think it's really cool that a TV show on Disney Plus about a Mandalorian, a side character in a Star Wars universe, is going to be the most talked about thing all year. And that's really cool for us Star Wars nerds.
Yeah, and it's not Boba Fett the character. It is an original character that they created for this show. And I'm really excited about it. I'm interested to see how they move forward with the story. I want to see how much they expand. Obviously, as WWE fans, I want to see what they do with Sasha Banks.
Told you, yeah.
I want to see what happens with Rosario Dawson as
Ahsoka Tano.
Yeah, so that's going to be really interesting. Do they tie in Darth Vader to this?
We're supposed to get a Boba Fett in there somewhere. Like it was leaked early on from his his agents had leaked it on that he was in it. Are we going to get one little scene from it? Are we going to get an actual storyline? I know we're getting, every You know what I'm really looking forward to is the different directors for every episode.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to that because they brought in some really fascinating names that you wouldn't think would work, like Robert Rodriguez. But I'm like, man, but like he did give us like some Sin Cities and Machete, so he's going to give us something kooky and fun.
I'm super hyped, though, for Giancarlo Esposito. And to see what the black lightsaber
Speaking of the
is.
boys,
Yeah,
right? Yep.
And as Moff Gideon, I believe.
Yes.
I forgot if that's his actual name, but I'll check it up in a little bit. But how are you excited about him? Do you think he's going to be the main bad guy throughout the entire series? Do you think he has a long stay as his character?
I hope so. It's Star Wars, so I don't think we just get one. We tend to get like arcs. So I hope he lasts at least a few seasons. This show reminds me of when they talk about Facebook and the social network. We don't know what it is yet. It's just like The Boys. Once it's in season 1, we didn't know what The Boys was. And now after season 2, we really know what The Boys are. And I think that's what Mandalorian needs to do is really give us a direction of, yeah, it's not just enough to be as good as season 1. You need to get us excited. Because when we left The Boys, we're like, man, dude, I cannot wait. Like, we can map out 7 seasons from here. Compared to Mando that it was in the year 1, this really has to build even more of a universe and even more of I can see them running with this for at least 5 seasons. And if it doesn't do that, if it's just good without any direction, I think that's the worst thing a season 2 can do. Season 2 needs to build any good show. Game of Thrones, Breaking Bad, Sopranos. Season 2 is always declared one of the best, or The Boys nowadays, because it sets up what we're going to get used to in season 3, 4, 5.
Are you worried that they might lean too much to Jedi kind of stuff and like the Force, or do you kind of hope that they tease it like they did in season 1, but it still is a bounty hunter. It is still a samurai type of thing.
My best guess, no, I think they're going to have a good balance. It's the same people with hindsight now. Is that my fear? No, my fear is just we get a real fun singular season with no direction. That's my only fear because that could happen where, no, season 2 was really good. I just don't know where we go from here. Is it going to keep continuing this whole, okay, this is a whole new thing. But again, once we see episode 1, I think we'll be able to tell, okay, this is the direction. Even the second trailer kind of gave us an idea of, so like, is it just him? He has to get the kids somewhere? No, I got to kind of raise him and I got to find more bounty hunters. And now a bad guy's chasing me. I'm like, okay, those are like 3 arcs right there. Let's build off that, which is what I think they'll do.
And I am super excited to see how this moves forward. I want to see what the reaction is for people on Friday morning, Friday afternoon, heading into Saturday. I'm excited for it. Baby Yoda is everything. I got my Baby Yoda downstairs.
Same.
It's the best. It's a fun series. I love Pedro Pascal. I think this has the chance to really knock it out of the
What
park.
about those dumb rumors that Pedro Pascal is not going to finish the season?
Yeah, sure.
As he's currently filming season 3, guys.
And with
and
that,
just tweeted out him and Baby Yoda. But yeah, he's really unhappy.
no, he's unhappy making all that boo-foo Star Wars and Disney money.
Yeah.
Speaking of Disney money, speaking of some of our favorite actors, and I will just say our man crushes, we go from Pedro Pascal to one of our other favorites, Oscar Isaac, in talks, and to some publications, signed on the dotted line
So
to be
basically
the
very
one,
heavy talks.
the only Moon Knight himself. How ecstatic are you to have one of the best actors, but not just that, representation on a character that you know is so important to people, but has so much meat on that bone for an actor like Oscar Isaac to play multiple personalities? Come on.
Here's the part. Okay, it's very heavily talked. Like it's very open. Like you said, some were saying he already signed on, some were saying he talked. And they basically come out saying, no, it's very much in super heavy negotiations. We just kind of got to sign on the dotted line and finish it. So let's say, for all purposes, he's Moon Knight. I like it. It's a win for Hispanics. Oscar Isaac is a A-class actor.
A1.
Like, you can't get much better than that. And his range and his name value, and he's already been in your sandbox, so it's just easy to move him to the other side and let him play with the superheroes instead of the spaceships. Here's my issue. And it's not really an issue, but I understand where people are upset. I would understand if I was a Jewish American person and this is your one superhero that you get and they change his race to Hispanic male. Again, we're the Hispanic side.
Sure.
So we're like, listen, we're just glad it wasn't a basic white guy. On the other hand, I do understand a little bit of an uproar of, man, this was like our one Jewish superhero and you guys took it from us.
It's
like
true,
that's,
yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, I get it. I also understand that you need name recognition, and it's better to have some representation
Than none.
I know there is like he's very distantly related, like has Jewish heritage, but he was brought up Roman Catholic, but he does have Jewish heritage in his bloodline. So I guess it's not our place, but I'm just wanted to throw that out there that it is acknowledged that I understand. Again, as Hispanic men, we understand representation matters. So for us, when we saw him in Star Wars, that was a big deal for us. And Diego Luna in Rogue One. So I don't know how to feel about that, but as Oscar Isaac just playing the character, very excited. Because, you know, the great John Schnepp would always explain it, because I don't know much about Moon Knight. You think he's a Marvel Batman, but apparently he's even more kooky and crazy and like psychotic. So more of a Rorschach than an actual Batman.
Yeah, and obviously it's a more complex kind of character that I think they wanted just to get the best actor they can. And if you're able to get somebody of Oscar Isaac's caliber, but here's the second
and
part.
He's in your box already.
Yeah, but this is the thing that unfortunately we have to also take into consideration about aesthetics. If you were to cast a white Jewish man to play Moon Knight, like his heritage is,
which there were rumored, they were looking at some guys.
But here's the thing, though. Unless you're getting somebody who looks like they're Israeli or like just from the actual Jewish land, motherland, you know, like they were gonna just say you got another white dude.
Exactly.
So I feel like it was a really hard thread for them to kind of walk through. Like I feel bad because like it would be nice to have some Jewish representation on. Some real Jewish representation out there that isn't just, you know, the rabbis and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Like not just placating to the common norms. But with that in mind, like I also think it's an important win for the movement in general, where you get a pronounced Academy level actor that isn't just the white dude. Which again, I'm not hating on the white dudes, but it's not just the same blanket statement that would have happened in 1999.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: in 1999. Tom Cruise would have been Moon Knight and not Oscar Isaac. So.
And it's always a touchy subject. Look at Salma Hayek. She's played every single Hispanic you can, and she's Colombian. And she's played every single. She's played Mexican, Puerto Rican, Costa Rican. So at some
Jennifer
point,
Lopez is Puerto Rican.
That's what. And she played Selena's Taino.
Taino,
God.
Mexicana, yeah.
Like so.
Tejano.
Sorry, Tejano. Taino would have been the natives. But you know what I mean? It's a tough subject when it's like there's only so much you can do, because at the end of the day, you still have to sell tickets. You still need name recognition. And I think for someone like you and me, it's a little more real. We can like, as long as we get some representation and an effort toward it, I appreciate it. Like we got an Aladdin movie with an actual lead that matched the character. That's cool to me. Like Disney tends to do more good than bad, I would say. Disney tends... And I hate giving a multi-billion corporation that just fired a bunch of employees, but they do tend to lean more on, we'll try to find the right piece. I think Oscar Isaac is a good step, and I think that's as close as we could have gotten while still maintaining enough. Yeah, guys, they got to sell tickets. They got to sell subscriptions here.
So I'm sympathetic seeing that Disney has put so much trust, or it seems like they're putting so much trust. Obviously, they did it with Pedro Pascal. Mm-hmm. Warner Brothers did it with him being one of the main leads in their Wonder Woman film. Obviously, one of the main guys in both Game of Thrones and in Narcos. And then you bring in Oscar Isaac, who was phenomenal in every role that man has been. In Star Wars, he's one of the common, most beloved characters. Like nobody ever gives him crap.
He gets a lot more love than unfairly John Boyega did.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's the perfect example of like somebody who just never got the right shake with the fandom is John Boyega, but somebody who's always just kind of like been brought in and like kind of loved. And it came off after that movie with Alicia Vikander with the robot.
Yeah.
Her. Yeah, no, not her.
Ex Machina.
Ex Machina. Since that moment, everybody has known where Oscar Isaac was going to be moving forward. So
Annihilation was really good.
So he's amazing. He was even okay as Apocalypse. Like the movie was garbage, but even he was okay as Apocalypse.
Oscar Isaac, Pedro Pascal, and Diego Luna. Yeah. Star Wars. You have our hearts.
You have forever and ever. But you know who didn't have the hearts of many people, good brother? Apparently, No Time to Die, the new James Bond film, because they were being shipped around, at least it seems like from MGM, to a bunch of different streaming platforms. And the rumor has been up to $600 million for a selling price, whether that's what they were asking for, whether that was offered. Apparently it wasn't good enough.
They offered.
Apparently it wasn't good enough for the people of James Bond and that estate and the producers, which I can't blame them. If they believe in their movie, they believe in it. But this is the issue I've had with this film. They have had no idea what they wanted to do. They kept pushing and pushing and pushing. If you were going to release, you should have done it during the middle of the summer when you had the only potential. You should have done it a week after Tenet. You should have rid that whatever momentum that was, because there was never going to be better than the next summer.
Christmas.
I know, because I'm telling you, now that we're in the end of October, we're seeing, at least here in the state of Illinois, which means Chicago, and we're seeing how these restrictions are going. It's not going to get better during the winter season.
No, I think that's what their thought was we were going to get Christmas. And now you're like, no, Christmas is off the table now. There's no new movies this year. So what are you going to push it till now? Summer next year?
They wanted to put it on VOD, obviously. That was the goal.
No, so here's the thing. So I looked into it because, again, me and Mike had this debate. They weren't selling it. They were hearing offers. The amount, from what I hear, they offered $600 million, and they said, no way. They're like, we're not making our money back. And I agree.
No, they wouldn't.
I think our biggest debate, where we've kind of found a middle and we agree with, is going forward, producing and everything, I could see a lot of movies going to streaming. Anything that was made so far already is not going to streaming. You're not going to see Batman on stream. You're not going to see these. I think it's an obnoxious, I don't want to say ignorant, but thought to think that these movies that cost almost $1 billion to make are going streaming. And this proved that, listen, $600 million, no, we'd rather hold it and release it next year and try to make that $1 billion and be the first one than sell it for $600 million. Borat proved that even with high views, even with high numbers, it is not reliable to put these movies on streaming that were not made for streaming. And that movie gets away with it because it's a comedy and it's made for not a lot of money. But it did not do well viewer-wise. And yet it did good for 2020. So we're in that scenario. There was also a rumor that they wanted to buy off the entire property. So they were going to throw in an extra $200 million and okay, we'll pay you what it costs to make and what you made. We'll pay you $800 million. You give us this and the library. They said, no, now discussions are closed.
Yeah, that's
because
ridiculous.
No offense, that's worth it. That's
deal.
$1 billion
That's $1 billion
industry.
deal, yeah.
To have the name property of James Bond.
Yeah. Disney sold for $4 billion. It can sell for $2 billion. At least.
Minimum $1 billion. Even at I don't think James Bond has that name value anymore. Personally,
maybe not in the States, but around the world.
Yeah, especially with the Mission Impossibles. And I think, and the Uncharted coming out, I'm like, we're starting to see other venues for our spy thrillers. At the same time, I'm glad they didn't sell. Because, again, it's a big win for movies saying, no, we're going to wait. We're going to wait. Disney's smart saying, listen, we can make things for the streaming. But there are movies, I think Aladdin's and your Lion King 2s, that they're like, no, guys, we're not going to put these billion. You can have Soul. That was an animated movie. I know we disagree, and we're not going to have an answer till later. But I think this helps my case of if it's already made or if it's not in production yet, like the movies we're discussing, they're like, don't even think about them. But yeah, there's some small projects that we just throw on the streaming. It'll make us some money for the year. We got to be smart. We don't have the movie theater. So, of course, we're going to change course for the next year. But as soon as these movie theaters open up, here you go, here you go, here you go.
If they open up, what the restrictions are, how people are filming, I think these are all X factors that don't.
Well, filming-wise, we figured out filming's almost like sports right now where they're just kind of going for it. They're going for it.
It's not about whether they can start filming.
So you think they're going to put Spider-Man 3 on a streaming service?
No, Spider-Man 3 right now. That will be on the big screen.
I agree.
I don't. Spider-Man is a bigger property than Aladdin.
Money-wise, no. Money-wise, Spider-Man. Did any of the Spider-Man movies make as much as the Lion Kings?
We can find out.
I didn't think any. You might be right. I did not think any of the Spider-Mans broke $1 billion, I'm sure.
The first Spider-Man movie to break $1 billion was Far From Home.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay, so compare it to Lion King, because Lion King on its own made $1 billion with bad reviews. So to me, I'm like, no, Lion King's a bigger property than Marvel.
No, not right now.
I think if you ask the common person, would you rather go see a Spider-Man movie or Lion King 2? They'll say Lion King 2. I think so. Let's say someone like Nicole, who is a fan of most things, but not a diehard like we are. I think she'd prefer to see Lion King 2 than Spider-Man 3.
That's interesting. I mean, I don't know.
I think the common person would.
That's an interesting. That's interesting. I don't think so.
See, that's where I'm fascinated. I'm gonna poke you at this because the fact that you said Spider-Man 3 would come out there, but not Lion King 2. Yeah. Lion King 2 is, I think, a worldwide property.
So Spider-Man: Far From Home made $1.130 billion.
Okay.
And if you are looking at the Lion King, it made made $1.43 billion.
So regardless, they made pretty much the same, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea that you could say Spider-Man 3's in the theater, but Lion King 2 wouldn't be, is amazing to me.
Because
what's your reason? I really want to hear
the
this.
reasoning is the momentum moving forward. Spider-Man Far From Home has the critics behind it, has the fan base behind it, and also has the narrative behind it because it's building a universe. Lion King
Has fan base.
obviously has a fan base that made $1 billion. It has way more money that they're spending on music and on stars, obviously for voice acting. Okay. You spend a lot of money on the CGI, and you're also, this is the key to me, it's the director you brought in. You didn't bring in a big name director that's Steven Spielberg. You brought in a director that's supposed to make you a good movie.
Who's directing Spider-Man 3? That's my point. Is like, but we know at least in the African American community, Mary Jane is a huge name.
Because
and to us
Oscar amazing.
And Oscar pundits.
Yeah.
Compared to Spider-Man 3, I agree with you in the sense where I'm like, yeah, Marvel movies. I agree when we talked at the beginning of the year that a superhero movie should have been the thing to break the seal if you were going to do it. Like, I think Tenet was the wrong movie to do. But a Wonder Woman, a Black Widow, I think that would have been more, you would have seen a little bit more money. I think people would have risked it more for a superhero because that is the biggest genre in movies nowadays. But I find it fascinating that you could say Spider-Man 3 will for sure get released. When in my head, I'm like, if you told me those two movies will get to theatrical release, I'm going to say Lion King, not Spider-Man.
Now, I disagree, and I think I disagree more along this line. The only movie that I'm very confident, like, obviously Lion King is a big enough property to get to the theaters. I don't think Aladdin's guaranteed, especially to get back to the theaters. Aladdin 2 feels like a Disney Plus movie, too.
That one's like not even in pre-production, so there's not even point like mentioning that because like that's so far.
But those are the two that made $1 billion, that made a lot of money, and that they were the. Because here's the thing too, we still don't have a Jungle Book 2 yet, and that is critically the better of all those movies. And like I don't. It's not that
it's also made the least amount of money.
But it's not that I don't think the Lion King property should be in the theaters. I don't think momentum says it's going to go to the theaters. I think they're tripling down. It's the VHS thing. I'm sure when they made, because Return of Jafar went to the theaters, but Lion King 2 didn't. Aladdin 3 didn't.
And it almost destroyed Disney.
But here's the thing, when they ended up putting everything on VHS is when they made their money. They made the vault.
When they made the vault. But we're forgetting there was a middle case where they decided, man, we're making money off these VHSs. Let's put everything on VHS. And we had a huge surge in animated sequels going to VHS because they were making more money at the time.
Yes.
And that crashed and boomed. And again, for the end of lining up. And it's going to be the same with streaming where it's a big boom now. But again, cinema's going to take over again.
No, but you say that, but here's the thing. We're not there yet. So we're just in the beginning of the boom of the streaming services.
And none of these movies have been even produced. But to my argument earlier, Spider-Man 3 is actually filming right now as we speak.
Yes.
Lion King 2, they're not even in pre-production.
But here's the difference, though, is they have properties that are in the Spider-Man universe that are directly made for the streaming service. That is one of their properties that is made to get you to movie theaters. The Lion King, I don't think they don't need another movie to get you to the movie theaters. What they need is to have consistent subscribers because they control every profit of that. How do you do that? You don't need Lion King. You're going to have a bunch of different billion-dollar movies up there. What you do is
I do think you need Lion King.
I don't, because obviously just along with your Marvel and Star Wars
subscriptions aren't enough, and then we still don't have a process. How are we going to sell this? Now that was a great debate, by the way. Let's move on to the next part of that, which is okay. Let's say now we know we're going to get streaming movies on Disney Plus. Disney doesn't have a system yet where it's like, how much are we going to, $30 didn't work.
Sure.
Are we going to get a premium? They're going to have to up their price. $6.99 is not going to work because you're finding out, we have all these views, but we're not making any money.
But it goes back to the original point that we've been making forever. Movies will be cheaper to make because they're not going to invest the same amount of money on them.
Certain movies, yes.
So
Lion King, yes, is a little cheap. I think you're actually opposite. I think what you said earlier, I think it's the opposite. I think Lion King's cheaper to make, which helps your case of it's easier to put somewhere else because since it does not involve filming schedules necessarily.
Because it's all assets you own. You are literally just taking the stuff that you made for the first one and you're just updating it for the sequel.
They don't own Spider-Man. Sony owns Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, tentatively speaking, they own them. Like they basically own them for next.
Streaming-wise, you cannot find a Spider-Man movie on Disney Plus.
Hence why you need a movie like Lion King that you own every single thing of that IP. Opposed to it being in the movie theater.
I agree with that in theory, but Lion King is the biggest property maybe in the world.
Yeah, but that's why this conversation, I'm not the one with the favorable odds. I'm the one giving you the upset of Lion King is the one that's not going to make it onto movie theaters.
I thought it was just fascinating with the Spider-Man theory.
Speaking of fascinating, good brother, Michael B. Jordan is going to be directing and starring in Creed 3.
I mean, it's like Stallone. Stallone did the same process, basically.
What do you feel Michael B. Jordan brings to the camera?
I don't know. This is his first time, so we really don't know anything. He's a fantastic actor.
Yeah.
I would like to see a little more range from him.
Same.
I think Creed 2 was better on the second viewing. I really love Creed 1.
Creed 1,
I did enjoy Creed 2 better on the second viewing. I did appreciate the story arc from Part 4. I don't know where this is going.
Either do I.
I don't know what a Creed 3 can be, so I hold judgment because I really don't know. It could be awesome,
A Creed 3, I
or
think
it
it's
can
his
be really
retirement.
dumb.
I think it's his retirement coming to the end of his career and ending
we
his
learn what
trilogy.
Khabib, like, fighters are retiring younger and younger because it's so much more intense and the competition
And there's
is
more
bigger.
money now to
And
be
like,
made after.
I mean, shout out to Khabib. Like, you got me onto him when I wasn't watching UFC. He made me watch again, and so like it's very similar. I would agree. I would like that storyline of, you know, I maxed out. I'm done. Like, I don't want to die in the ring. This isn't Rocky IV where we have 70-year-old men in the ring.
Yeah.
It's more realistic. Like, well, no. By the time you get to like
31, 32,
yeah,
33,
like you did your
34,
prime.
yeah.
Like your Ronda Rouseys, your Connors, your Brock Lesnar's. Like you hit your prime.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll do a fight or two, but you're done. Like competition rises and it catches up to you. And I would like that story told in a boxing movie.
See, I've always wanted to see him go against the modern day Floyd. Like that idea of like what Apollo would be in the modern day.
Like a nice pretty fighter who wins on the card
But-
against a nice gritty guy.
But the problem is, I don't think Michael B. Jordan wants to portray anybody like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this is just going to be the very typical. There's going to be a really big mountain that he needs to beat down for about an hour, and then he retires at the end of the movie.
I would like to see, but do you want to see him go down winning or losing?
If I'm Michael B. Jordan, I lose.
You go losing. Like you let someone put you out, right?
But I don't think he's going to let himself lose.
But it's also a Rocky movie. I know we say that, but like I do like a nice happy ending in my boxing
I'm
movies.
strictly going off of Michael B. Jordan, the dude.
Yeah.
And I don't think Michael B. Jordan, the dude, is not going to put himself over
I don't think
if
so
he gets
either.
the chance to.
I think he's the guy that loves to die at the end of movies, you know?
Yeah, but not movies that he controls.
I don't know. I still feel like I'm with you. I think he puts the other guy over.
I hope so. I think he retires at the end of the movie. Michael B. Jordan's the man, so like I could see him be Creed for another 6 times as long as they want to crank him out. Speaking of cranking out, the PS5 and the Xbox One X, the Series S, the brand new one coming out, has been delivered to all the major production companies of like Easy Allies, IGN,
Reviewers,
Games Radar,
stuff
all
like
the
that,
major,
yeah.
kind of funny. You're the one with the people, the kids. What are you thinking? What are they feeling? Are they all ready for Christmas season to get their Xboxes and their PlayStations?
So, you know, I coach young kids, predominantly female. It's funny. I've had more moms ask me about buying Xbox Ones because the games they're playing don't really involve graphics so much. So they're actually now, I've had more people saying, hey, can I just grab an Xbox One really cheap? And I'm like, yeah, you can actually because the newest one's going to come out. And they're like,
So
well, I'm
like
like,
the
well,
Xbox One?
yeah. And I'm like, well, what kind of games does your kid play? They're like, well, Fall Guys and Among Us. And I'm like, okay, so the popular indie trends. I'm like, yeah, they don't need a new system for that. They can play it on the old. I'm like, so I've heard more about that. Me and my friends, it's more the library. I think once you get to our age, it's like, no, both are great, but what am I getting for my buck? And at this point, it's which games are coming out. I think PS5 just has so many more.
Spider-Man and all
And
that.
I mean, yeah, Xbox people can say, well, it's Halo. I'm like, when's the last time Halo was really relevant?
Halo 3.
Yeah, Halo 3 was the last like big selling name. That was a long time ago, man.
There's a lot of things I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to get my hands onto Resident Evil 8. I can't wait to play Miles Morales, God of War, Ragnarok. Like there's
God
a
of
bunch
War, that's the one that did it for me. That's the one I'm like, okay, I want to get a PS5.
And like I was an Xbox 360 guy over a PS3 guy, but I'm a PS4 guy over an Xbox One.
And that's actually generally the idea is, 360 was much better than the PlayStation 3.
Oh, yeah.
But the PS4 was
Way
much better than the Xbox One.
Yeah, so I'm excited though. We have a new gen of what's been crazy is like this year has been so insane. We're getting a brand new generation of video games.
I mean, it's been great for TV and video games.
It's crazy.
Sports has been going.
But here's the thing about the video game trend is everybody thought it was going to become the cell phones where we're just getting upgrades every 2 years. And it just seems like, no, maybe this is the last step for Xbox and Microsoft and everything now will become computers moving forward. But PlayStation and Nintendo are nowhere near being done making
Isn't it
consoles.
crazy nowadays? Like, everyone can build their own computer. 14-year-old children are like, no, I can build my own computer easily.
You just watch Superman do it.
Yeah, like, it's crazy to me. And I'm like, damn, that's really impressive. That's cool, though. I'm like, that's a really cool thing. Like, I never thought we'd get to the point of technology where, yeah, man, I can just order all these parts, put it together myself, and I have this great gaming system.
And speaking of a great Selena's trailer out, what did you think about it? Obviously, we're gonna swoon
Come on,
over
man.
it. Like, we're gonna
Dude,
love it.
I cried
Yeah.
watching that trailer. Dude, we're Mexicans.
Not just that.
We love Selena.
I have evidence. I have witnesses. When I was a small child, that I said I was going to marry Selena's, and she was taken away from me. So
I have witnesses of me bawling like a baby at the end of that movie.
So, I mean, obviously on Netflix, it's going to be fun. We'll be reviewing it. We'll watch it. It's just going to be
the girl from Walking Dead.
It's the girl from Walking Dead.
Yes.
Rosario. What's her name? Rosary. I forgot what her name is, but she's first of all, she's obviously gorgeous, so she's going to rock the role of Selena's.
Oh my
but
God.
she looks like Selena's. And shout out to the director for that opening shot of that trailer.
It looks just so good. Like everything about I love it. I love that we're getting the series and little details and the family and you can like
She better
my
sing
God.
Blue Moon and
I mean, she seems like she is.
Mama.
I like the scene we get in the trailer where like we're getting more of the family aspect too, which is really cool. Like the brother wrote all the songs, and I love that part. He was like, "Yeah, just write it down, mijo." I'm like, "Damn, that got me." I'm like, "Oh, this is gonna be a beautiful show."
Be great.
I only want you drumming behind me.
Do we see the end of our Selena's by this? Is this a movie or a series?
It's a series, and it terrifies me because I don't think I can emotionally go through seeing what happens to Selena's happen. Honestly, I don't think I can emotionally handle that.
But do they make this a more of a seasonal thing and not just a one season?
They could.
They could stretch it out.
Like I said, the way they're telling it's very young. You could do a few seasons.
Yeah, and just
2
do
or
flashbacks
3.
from when she's a kid to when she's an adult.
Yeah.
And then, eventually
We'll
get to
know
the
more
Grammys.
once we see it. I think of what kind of style they're going for.
If they film the Grammys, we know that they're killing her at the end of the season.
Yeah.
If we get to
we
that
haven't
point,
seen anything there. Out of the footage they've really shown us is very early Selena, like studios and carnivals and as a child.
Would you, if you were the directors to producers, would you bring out a couple mil and ask for a cameo from the one and only J-Lo? Just a little, nothing big, but just like trying to find some, maybe she's like a big superstar that Selena loved and kind of showing, because that Selena movie really did.
Yeah, but I think you can tell by the other producing studio that's going with Netflix that this is definitely, it feels like a love letter to Selena's the person, not necessarily Selena's the movie.
Yeah.
But like I said, we'll see. So I don't think I would love it, but I don't think it's one of those they even thought about. How much do you think
the Selena's movie has impacted the legacy of Selena's?
A lot.
Selena. We keep saying Selena's, but if you watch the movies, you know what we're talking about. Selena's. What do you think?
A lot, dude. Everyone,
right?
If you are, it's almost like with African Americans and certain movies, this is ours. Yeah. So like they have like every American's seen Roots, and they've seen Coming to America, and they've seen the Eddie Murphy specials. Like they grew up on Richard Pryor. This is our version of that, where we grew up on that VHS of Selena. Like this was our biggest movie.
We saw it in theaters,
and Blood In, Blood Out. Like those are the movies you're like,
Vatos
dude,
Locos
I've
for
seen
life.
it. Exactly. I'm gonna cut you, Chewy.
And speaking of cutting, we'll get into this last subject. Hell in the Cell. What did you think?
Really good.
Yeah,
and they it's always the ones you think are gonna suck are always really good.
The Hell in the Cell match is killed. Crushed.
I didn't like the last one. I hate leaving the cell.
It was the least of the three, but it was still good.
Man, they hindsight is what it is, but in this case, I'm like, you should have closed with the women, and you should have, and everyone told you should have, and you still didn't. And I get you had the Money in the Bank stipulation, so you're like, oh, is he gonna do it? But man, should you have closed with Sasha Banks holding that title? And The Mandalorian comes out this week, and I called that. I'm like, they're gonna put the title on her.
Well,
we both had one.
I told you, I'm like, hey, do you? Because I was re-listening, so I'm like, which one of us called this? So it came up. I'm like, hey, this is the only issue I'm having. Do you think that because this show's coming up, and you didn't even let me finish the subject, like that's the one thing I'm sitting on is she's gonna be at Mandalorian? Do you want your champion with that belt
doing them
press?
home interviews?
Yes,
like, look,
doing all the press,
and like you can tell by the announcement, like it's just everywhere.
Yeah.
They keep mentioning it. They're like star of new show on Disney Plus. Like, duh, you're gonna use this cross promotion, especially like we think she's gonna be a huge character.
Because she's on SmackDown. SmackDown is on Fox, but they don't own that Fox though.
No.
Technically, they don't own Big Fox, but like that's in the family.
That
It's
whole
all in the
family, that whole
Yeah,
Family Guy
thing's
joke.
together.
It's like I'm sick of this. What do we own and what don't we own?
Yeah, exactly. So
what can we use?
It's interesting. I thought
Roman Reigns match.
Roman and Jay, amazing. I mean, if you have any type of sibling or family competitive rivalry or competitiveness, the moment that they're just talking ish to each other the entire time.
That psychology of like, no, this motherfucker was going to let you cave in his head and he wasn't going to quit.
Yeah.
But as soon as you went after his twin brother,
that was it.
He had to do it. And I love that story. I'm like, man, dude, that's deep. Like, that's a great way to get through this ending. And we had kind of predicted that where I'm like, I don't see him character-wise just quitting.
No.
So that made the most sense. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna hurt someone you love then.
So I think Roman
And then
played
Alpha
it.
and Sika?
Yeah, Alpha and Sika just icing on
Hey,
the
brother.
cake. Yeah.
Hey, brother.
That's his dad. I
his
forgot.
dad
I
and
think
his
Sika
uncle.
is his dad. I
Yep.
forgot which one was his papa, but
Sika.
I do love that the issue talk. I think Roman crying was amazing. My favorite part, Jay said though, is when he's like, "What do you mean, Paul? No." It's like he's talking trash to Paul Heyman because Paul Heyman's like, "Don't hit him." He's like, "What do you mean, no?" And it's like that moment of like clarity of, "Don't. This is family business. Do not talk to me. You know what's going on right now."
And they did such a good job. It's almost perfect storytelling. It might be one of the best storylines they've told since Daniel Bryan or Kofi.
I've heard this. I heard it from the boys of Ring Rust Radio. So let's say Jimmy and Jay join Roman simply because, like, they, for whatever reason.
Those are his lackeys now, yeah.
What if this leads to Big E going against Roman and then Big E having his New Day boys against
I think so.
Jimmy and Jay?
Because I think the dream is The Rock. I just think logistically we're never going to see
But I'm
that.
not willing to put that on the
I'm
table.
not going to put it out.
No,
I'm not.
Yeah.
But I think a much more realistic, and I think if you're leaning percentages wise, you're like, of course they want The Rock. Of course they want Roman beating The Rock and like doing one more of this version. But I think realistically more it's the Big E thing, the New Day getting involved, all that stuff. I want to see more Samoans. I want to see this become a thing because like I do think it's one of those very underappreciated families in
Do
the
you
last
think
10 years.
Joe had interesting kind of faces and talks? Do you think at some point they put Joe as a sacrificial lamb to fight him again?
Just
like,
because obviously he's going to have to keep fighting people and look legit fighting people.
and there's nobody better to fight if you're a
Yes.
Samoan and saying you're the tribal chief than another
I
Samoan
think
that
so,
has
yes.
no family ties.
I agree, yes.
Like I was
Because
waiting
you need to give him
say-
some nice baby faces to fight. You got to give him someone to kind of go through that's not family.
Because if I'm booking Samoa Joe just as a badass, I'm like, yeah, you may be your tribal chief, but you ain't.
I ain't your family.
I ain't your tribal.
And he'll cut
Yeah,
a
I ain't
real
your
good
tribal.
promo,
Yeah,
yeah.
and like, because one of my favorite promos from those two is when you know where we both come from, and you know what I said means one thing, and then Roman's like, yeah, and they start fighting because it's like, yeah, when you come from the block,
Yeah.
and you say something, you know what's going to go down.
And it's always been that background joke of like Samoa Joe's the only Samoan not in that family.
the only one who's not in that family, and he gets shit on the most.
Even like Tonga Kid and all of them are slightly related to
I
like
don't know.
distant
No,
relatives.
I don't think so because they're Tongan. I don't think
I thought they were like they're like a brother-in-law or sister-in-law.
I don't know if Tamatonga.
I thought there was like a small connection through marriage at least.
I don't know, but they're badass though. I love.
Yeah, they're great too.
They're great.
Like Samoa Joe's legit like no one. He doesn't have any brothers, any cousins. It's just him.
He's just Samoa
Yeah.
Joe, and
Yep.
he gets away with being called Samoa
Yeah.
Joe. It's pretty dope. Any more talk though about wrestling moving forward? I mean, obviously we have the Survivor Series. I'm not really.
Where is Raw? So with Orton winning the title, where's that leading? Fiend, right? Fiend's gonna get the title.
Unless it's Edge.
It could be Edge.
I mean,
one of those two,
Edge.
right? Fiend or Edge.
Yeah, I mean, Edge has won a Royal Rumble, so I don't know if I would give him another one, but like that is something Vince would do.
You don't
where-
need it because Edge can come back just off pure rivalry, I think, and come be right in the picture. It's kind of like Goldberg and Lesnar, where like the title's kind of just there as, well, this is something we can fight for, but like the rivalry is just as big. We don't need to set it up. Like we know why we're fighting.
And finally, speaking of fighting, we stay in the sports world. Los Angeles is the title town of USA as the Lakers win their bubble and the LA Dodgers win their bubble. LA now the home of the NBA final champions and the World Series champions, although Justin Turner pulled from the game in this with COVID and then out there celebrating, and they almost made it to the finish line without screwing it all up. But before we go in, I'll go in more on Major League Baseball.
A lot of baseball experts, huh?
Yeah. Let's just talk about LA being title town for a second, and then the Rams beating up on Chicago this past Monday Night
Very
Football.
personal for Mike
It feels
today.
a little personal.
And he lost in fantasy football.
Yeah, I don't like any of this. What did you think, though, about LA now, title town?
I love it. I'm a big Lakers fan.
Of course you are.
I am, and honestly, like the reason is when I was getting really into sports, especially basketball, I got through you and Jeff. The Bulls were no longer great, but you always support the hometown team. Yeah. So you try to find a secondary, and it was the Spurs and the Lakers.
Which were going through
and that's
the
what I
final
was
stuff,
exactly. I was watching so much of that prime Kobe, Dwight Howard. You know, like I was watching a lot of Paul Gasol's. You know, there was a lot of fun players going around.
The Lakers, I remember like Robert Fisher and you had Kobe and Shaq.
You have a Kobe
and,
statue in the
Robert
studio.
Horry. Yeah, I mean, I got one of the McFarlanes donated by
the
Jeff.
Dodgers. Congrats to them.
Yeah.
I really like. They're my most hated baseball team.
Yeah.
and that's because they've always been a pain in the ass for the Cubs. We beat them to win the World Series.
You know
that
what?
was kind of fun.
It's funny
to
you
get
say
to the World
that.
Series.
I was going to say this on Sports from the Couch proper, but I think the Dodgers winning, the biggest fans of that happening are the people who won the World Series the last 4 years.
Yeah, because it
legitimizes your World Series.
And I
now.
saw that, and I love that comment. I'm like, no, it does. It really proves, like, no, these guys are hard to beat. Like,
they were the guys.
this is a super team.
Yeah.
Like, and now, and again, they've been chasing that title for so many years of like, man, if they would have really lost this one, you're kind of like, man, what a bust.
No, it was all done. And
now you're kind of like, okay, no, like it's baseball. Baseball is a little harder to go back to back, or even when you think you have, like, look at the White Sox. On paper, you're like, yeah, they should win. They get eliminated first round.
I actually think they're going to be one of the favorites to win it next year.
They are. I mean, going into this season, you know me, I will refuse to acknowledge the White Sox because I make that joke with Cisco. Yeah, I'm glad you have all these young players and your management's going to totally screw it up and hire someone that doesn't know how to deal with them.
Yeah,
but good for y'all.
Yeah,
Only the White Sox will blow this amazing young roster you have going on with, like, how many Gold Glovers and finishers and qualifiers for all these awards. Yeah. But you guys will somehow mess it up by hiring the worst possible manager in history.
I think they'll hire AJ Hinch even after all the stuff with the Astros. Yeah, I think it's a smart move.
Please
do it.
Just
just get the
sometimes
right guy.
the smart move is the right move, guys.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens next year when Theo Epstein leaves the Cubs. And to see
fascinating.
with Jed Hoyer as the main guy, what could Jed Hoyer build? So there's a lot of stuff to talk about baseball, but I guess congratulations. Not so much Laker fans, you guys win enough, but I want to give a big congratulations to a lot of people I know in the community when it comes to sports, when it comes to podcasting, that are huge Dodger fans. And I have to admit, if you're around my age, I've seen a Cubs World Series before you've seen a Dodgers World Series.
Yep.
So congratulations. You guys got
Way to
yours.
catch up.
Way to catch up to ours. Good brother. On that note, on that hate last word, please have a wonderful, safe Halloween, good brother. Enjoy Halloween Havoc. Enjoy the football games. May your team, now I don't care what it does until we play again.
Mike,
that was
you gave up
disrespectful.
200 points?
I didn't give it up. I can't play defense.
I don't know, man. I am now the head of our family.
What's your last word?
Pride.
I can't wait to be Sting to your Hulk Hogan, and you try to
Some
still
people
screw
have
me
called
up.
me in this fantasy league the next Patrick Mahomes of fantasy football. Some have said.
He's at Mercado2 and Alex on Twitter. I'm at Mike M Media. The show's on Twitter at Good Brothers Pod. Like, rate, review, and shares wherever you get your favorite podcast at Mercado Airwaves. Patreon.com/Mercado Airwaves. And, of course, we have swag. Teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves.
Get the When in Doubt Mercado shirt to represent your boy Alex, the fantasy champion.
You know what? I'm sabotaging myself. Don't go to teespring.com/Mercado Airwaves and buy that t-shirt. Buy another shirt. Buy a shirt that's about me specifically so I can make fun of him. For the good brother himself, Alex Mercado.
Adios.
I'm the good brother, Mike Mercado. We'll see you in the next episode of The Good Brothers here on the Mercado Airwaves
Network.
Thanks for joining us here on The Good Brothers, here on Mercado Airwaves.